Isn't this a sports show?
This show hasn't been very good so far tonight, has it?
I disagree.
This show is not. I'm not going to even be defensive about it. This show's just not been very good tonight.
I disagree.
The first show I did was good.
I disagree.
And I think
Almost entirely.
Wow, that joke stunk.
I thought it was pretty good.
That was not funny.
I liked it.
I didn't.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Hot diggity darn. I could absolutely put my face into a plate of barbecue and eat it like a piggy out of a trough right now.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
The good news is whenever I hung my head in shame there, I did find the pen I was looking for. It had fallen into my lap. So that's a pretty big victory for all of us.
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It is the day before Draftsmas Eve here. As we sit on a Tuesday, that means it's the day away from being a day away of the NFL Draft finally landing on our doorstep. I don't know how many times at this point I've mentioned that I think I am essentially just, if I'm not fully just waterlogged, floating throughout the draft pool right now, at the very least, we've been in it long enough around here that my fingers are extremely wrinkly from all of the moisture soaked up from being in this draft pool, even as guys like our friend Seth Keysor waited until the last minute to cannonball in. It's kind of funny. We'll talk to Seth about this in an hour.
That all sounds gross. No, thank you.
It is all gross.
I don't want any of it.
It's funny because we'll talk to Seth. We'll talk to Seth here in about an hour. But he waited until the last second to cannonball into the draft pool, and he still did a whole bunch of work that ended up absolutely not mattering. He did a bunch of work that essentially was, here's the tackles that I like and don't like. Here's what I think. Here's how I think this is gonna go. What now? You're telling me the Chiefs traded what for who? And I think that's hilarious still. So we'll give Seth a hard time about that whenever he joins us next hour. One thing I want to do a little bit, we have a bunch of ground, I think, still to till around the Orlando Brown trade and the conversation since then. We're at the point now, I think, where the conversation about the trade has become a conversation. And I mean, I'll play some of the hits from last night because I think a lot of it still applies today. But I've found myself, just unsurprisingly, being a little bit annoyed by Twitter as a whole over the last couple of days.
That's weird.
I know. That's so unlike me and so unlike Twitter to do something annoying. But it's true. But also, I want to take a little bit of time to hear on Draftsmas Eve to look at what the Chiefs could, should, might, must be doing with their draft picks after bringing in Orlando Brown. Because he changed everything, right? Obviously, the Chiefs absolutely had to end up, by the time the season started, they needed a new left tackle. Maybe, and into the absolute, final moments of the offseason, maybe they could have added Russell Okung or Alejandro Villanueva. Most likely they were going to draft someone, most likely with the first two picks, probably the first pick, maybe trading up. All of our energy, though, not all of it, a grand majority of our energy, though, had been spent looking at this tackle class, and now the Chiefs don't have that 31st pick. They do have a quality pick now added back in, even after losing 31, because of some of the intricacies and the interesting things within the trade they made for Orlando Brown with the Ravens. But I find it really interesting to be in the place that we're at right now, where we've kind of been frozen. We've kind of been frozen within this one space of, I got the pointy fingers mostly from the tackle class. But now we've got the margin for error shrinking, as I talked about yesterday, and these Chiefs draft picks being less obvious and more important now, or if not more important, still incredibly important, even without having to find a day one starting left tackle there. So that's all going to be really, really interesting. Also, the Royals lost today. Just happened. Probably going to be the last we talk about it. Just so you know.
Not a good offensive day.
No, one run. Looks bad.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah.
Jake Juno's good. Offense bad.
Did Junis didn't end up with that run, right? I know he put down a sack bunt. Did he score? Was it
No.
just advancing a runner?
Yeah. Nicky got a single, or I can't remember if he singled or walked, and then Junis laid down the. At first, I was like, "Why are the Rose bunting?" And then I remembered, oh yeah, it's National League. There's a pitcher.
And
Baseball.
this concludes our baseball coverage until maybe next Tuesday. Probably full week. Probably full week. And we're not going to talk about baseball for probably a full week.
I think there's a good chance that tomorrow night during the NFL draft show,
Unlikely.
it's about at least 66% baseball.
Nope. It will be 0% baseball. Sorry to break that to you. Because tomorrow night, I will mention that. Tomorrow night, we got an NFL draft show. I'm just going to start steamrolling over Rudy whenever he sneaks in those little punches, and we're going to see. Maybe that's what the show needs.
Bold take.
Tomorrow night, we'll have the NFL draft show with this crew, unless I can figure out something else for Rudy to go and do from 7 to 10.
I have stuff I can do.
You want to help Beers make a sandwich so I get out of here early? We'll have that show tomorrow night from 7 to 10. And we'll do all draft for those 3 hours as well. So this concludes our Royals coverage and all of our NFL draft coverage on Almost Entirely Sports and on tomorrow night's NFL Draft Preview Special is all brought to you by the Operating Engineers Local 101 Apprentice Program. Learn to operate all types of heavy equipment and specialized construction machinery. Call today at 816-640-2336. So, I want to eventually get back into the Orlando Brown discourse. But I figured today I could go ahead and double dip into some work I'd already done and look at where I think the Chiefs could maximize some of their draft picks, all of their draft picks, hopefully. And I want you to see how differently this class ends up looking. That I went through. I got a whole 7-round mock draft for the Chiefs. It's really 4 rounds, right? 5 rounds. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And 6. That is 6. But no 7. They don't have a pick in the 1st or the 7th round. So it's a 5-round draft.
Math.
I did the math. It took me a while, but I got there. Part of these things are I'm gonna throw a couple of players at you that I think you should probably know about going into this draft. But also, part of it I think is a pretty cool exercise of how much things change whenever they added Orlando Brown Jr. So now they don't go on the clock until 58, which is the pick they got in return from the Baltimore Ravens. A few picks higher than their next pick, though, as they picked 2 times very close together at 58 and 63. And so I went through a mock draft simulator on Saturday, I think, and looked at what the board had given me at the Chiefs pick. And by the time I got there at 58, I couldn't not do what I did.
You took a running back?
I certainly did not.
Travis Etienne.
What about a kicker?
I certainly did not.
What about a quarterback?
I took Diami Brown, the wide receiver out of North Carolina.
That doesn't sound like a kicker.
I did a mock draft this morning.
Diami Brown.
I did.
Let's go.
That's who I drafted. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Brown. I'm just gonna give you like a little blurb, and a lot of this, I'm gonna see if we can get Jordan Foote on the show tomorrow night. I know he's busy, but I think he'd be an excellent guy to have on to refresh ourselves here.
Do you know his I mean, if I don't know if you have a good way of getting a hold of him, maybe reach out to his boss.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get a hold of him. His boss is a real bleep hole though, so we'll see.
That's what I hear.
Man, let me tell you.
So what Jordan wrote, Jordan's got an incredible, he's at 99 now of 100 players in 100 days. He's written a scouting report for a player, published a scouting report for a player every single day on Arrowhead Report for 100 days leading up to the draft. Tomorrow is his last one.
Can I assume he's obviously listening right now because he listens to everything his boss does. But Jordan,
Sure.
if you're listening, just turn off your radio, your old school radio that I
Yep.
know you keep in the room for about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Josh, on draft day, you should actually make him do 101.
Wow, and just pick like
It's
a
like
running
a
back.
Special.
Just be like, hey, it's draft day,
it
Jordan.
could be whoever.
It's
His
draft
choice.
day.
But it's like, hey, Jordan, good job. You've done 100, prospects in 100 days. But now, hey, Jordan.
Hey, man, you didn't even
Jordan,
write about Trevor Lawrence.
it's
What
the
are we
day-
doing
It's
here?
the day of the draft. Let's do a little. It'll be like, hey, guys, surprise. I actually got 101.
This bit would probably be funnier to me if he hadn't already sent me, I bleep you not, 3 story ideas for, I think, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or maybe Thursday, Friday, Monday.
Cool.
I can't remember.
He needs 4 now. I just gave him a 4th.
But whenever he was looking at Diami Brown again out of North Carolina, he's saying, He's not a polished X receiver at this point, which is what Sammy Watkins essentially plays. But that he has all of the tools to eventually become one. In the interim, he'd be a great deep threat and add another dynamic to a Chiefs offense that would present him with endless opportunities to beat single coverage. In the immediate, he's the guy that gets matched up in single coverage as the attention is being paid to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. In the long term, hopefully, maybe even by the end of the season, he's your X receiver that is filling in that Sammy Watkins spot. And if things go really well, he's the guy in a couple of years that begins to take a little bit of work from Tyreek Hill, and he comes in as a younger player. This is something that it gets kind of dark when you think about it too far in advance, but these guys are going to drop off before Patrick Mahomes does. The people around him, I mean.
How dare you?
You want to keep replenishing that pool of talent. The McCole Hardman draft pick, we would have all loved it to be DK Metcalf, but I'm glad that they went up and took a receiver because this offense needs those types of weapons. Even whenever they got Tyreek Hill, they knew Tyreek Hill would still be on the team. The Chiefs are never going to, you're never going to hear me complain about the Chiefs having too many weapons for Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. So I made that pick at 58 because I had looked at, there were a couple of edges that I would have been pretty happy with next up. And then Peyton Turner, the edge out of Houston, was there at 63. Now, the funny thing about this is if the Chiefs would have taken Diami Brown at 31, let's say a bunch of receivers, all the top tier receivers and Bateman were all off the board, right? I wouldn't have been mad and I wouldn't have been that surprised. But that's sort of the joy of this particular range of picks. Where we talked to Matt Verderame last night. He was saying, he sees essentially, he's heard GMs and people in the league say at 75 is about where you get a real talent drop off. Mm-hmm. And Brett Veach said previously, before, whenever he was lying to us in the press conference, he was telling us
never.
There are 16 or 17 guys they see as being day one contributors. Add in the quarterbacks that they're not going to take. And maybe add in a running back because we know, or a couple running backs because we know Brett Veach does think some running backs have first round value. You maybe get that number into the low 20s, but you probably weren't going to get any of them at 31. It's one of the reasons I think they traded for Orlando Brown. If they knew that they could get Tevin Jenkins, then maybe. But even then, I don't know. But with that off to the side, these needs that end up popping up on the board and the players that are still there somewhere between that 30th pick or the 25th pick and the 75th pick, it's the reason that I was hoping they would trade back from 31 if they didn't have a tackle they loved there. Because I would rather have more picks in that range because I think that once you get to around that point, you're throwing darts from a similar distance. Even if you're really good at darts, it's still darts, and you're throwing them from a similar distance from 25 to, let's say, from Verderame's sort of notch there, 75. So let's say they take Peyton Turner in the second round. Whatever edge they end up almost inevitably taking, Peyton Turner's name that has been popping up a little too much to be purely coincidental, I think, but we'll see. Not that it's a guarantee that they'll take him, but I think that there's legitimate interest there. That would be my guess. But whatever edge they end up taking, we've already said whatever receiver they take, the biggest thing for him is that he's taking a bigger role in 2 years, and if he can add a curveball this year, we're here for it.
Awesome.
I would say the exact same thing about the edge. Whatever edge they end up taking. You want them to rotate in probably a little more and a little more impactfully than Mike Dana did last year as our watermark, right? For a rookie edge that played pretty well under Steve Spagnuolo. That's our watermark.
Especially a rookie edge, an incoming rookie edge would be a second-round draft pick. And again, guys outperform their draft position, but you expect a second-round pick to be more talented than a fifth-round pick.
And if he had a similar role but was a little more impactful in those snaps, I would take that almost certainly. Yep. And then if Taco Charlton ends up hurt again or whatever, well then you have to rebalance those things. But if you said the edge they end up with is a rotational piece who starts in his second year as like the heir apparent. Let's say Taco has a nice season and gets another a big deal somewhere else. Or Taco stays in town and Dana stays in town and they move on from Frank Clark. This team really needs a starting edge in 2022 and a rotational edge in 2021. I'd love a starting edge in 2021. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying that my bar there is relatively lower. The guy that I ended up with in the fourth round was maybe the easiest guy for me to fall in love with from this group because I bet you end up finding a few things that start sounding a little familiar. 4th round pick, Israel Mukuamu, defensive back, South Carolina. Dude is 6'4", 212 from his pro day. He is an athletic nightmare in a good way. And at South Carolina, he played some at safety, he played some at corner. He's a mid-round prospect who's got some rougher edges. But like I think he's a better athlete than L'Jarius Sneed, who is used in a similar way. If you bring him in, you're now adding, what do you need from your defensive backs this year? You don't need a starting safety for this group right now.
Nope.
If they bring back Bashad Breeland, don't need another starting corner. And if they don't, then you're going to need somebody who is at least your 4th corner, and you're accepting Rashad Fenton as your 3rd, which is, there are worse cornerback situations in the sport right now, but I would love for them to have Breeland back, or maybe somebody that steps in more sooner. But what I would love is to find another guy in that range that has those physical tools and those incredible traits, who can come in with Sam Madison and Dave Merritt, and with Spags also doing, like, I remember still from his the voluntary like rookie camp or whatever. I remember watching Spags do one-on-one workouts with guys. It seemed like it was happening all the time. I remember back at training camp, whenever we were at training camp, not last year, but the year prior. That was something that like there were a number of times when I would look out and it would be what's going on over there. Oh, that's Spags working with one of these young guys. You give me that sort of developmental player in that space. L'Jarius Sneed was more impactful at a lower pick than I ever would have expected.
Yep.
If this guy could be on the L'Jarius Sneed track, you'd be thrilled. In the 5th round, end up with Trey Hill, an interior lineman from Georgia. I don't need him to play a snap in 2021, but if he wants to compete with Austin Blythe at center and hopefully take that spot in 2022, you're thrilled, because it's a guy on a rookie contract, mid-round pick, that's starting in your offensive line. No sure thing, but you'd be happy about it. James Wiggins was a safety out of Cincinnati, who ended up with in the 2nd pick of the 5th round because he had injury issues, but he's got all the tools. Take the medical gamble in the 5th round, and then take another edge in the 6th round, Janarius Robinson out of Florida State. All of those guys, and by the way, with Robinson, you get, hopefully, maybe it's a bit of a lottery ticket, but if he can take any snaps for you in his first year and then take a little more years after that, you get a rotational guy who can hold his own and play some special teams in the 6th round, you'll take that every time. What's funny to me, though, is after getting tackle out of, just off the brain a little bit, I got to the end of this draft, and the reason that I gave you specific names here, here's the thing. Maybe one of these dudes ends up being a Chief. If I hit 3 or 4 of these picks, I'll change professions and become a professional Brett Veach guesser. And even then, my recent history would be not that great, because Brett Veach surprises me all the time.
Just when it comes to tackles and running backs, just don't listen.
That's probably
You've got everything else down. That's your little weakness.
Orlando Brown wasn't that surprised. It was bold, but it wasn't like it wasn't out of character for Brett Veach.
Yeah, but he lied to you twice about the tackles.
He lied a lot about the tackles. That's a great point. I should have, but now I know. Next time he talks about tackles, I'm going to tell you.
Now, that's what I'm saying. You just kind of, you're just like, hey, maybe I just kind of stay away from the lies.
That might be right. That might be it. But what was sort of funny to me is that after we stopped talking so much about all these gaping holes, and really it was the gaping hole at left tackle, there are a bunch of places where you would love to have a role player that you feel good about. And then if you get, and I'm also giving you the best case scenario on these guys, but if you get 2 or 3, let's say you get 2 starters, maybe one of them is a really like an excellent starter, but not quite a superstar. But you get a one Thornhill is probably that guy, right? You get a really, really good football player. You get one like replacement level starter. You get a couple of rotational role players that really do like get on the field and don't embarrass themselves whenever they're there. What you have in those situations is twofold. One, just players on your roster, which is great. And 2, players on your roster who are filling those gaps at the value that only rookies can really bring. And if you're tired of value conversations, I get it. I'm still not completely exhausted by it, because it's one of those things that I just find really interesting, that I just always love talking about, at least a little bit. But if you find value in these spaces, like what I said last night about the tackle positions, if Lucas Niang, a 3rd-round draft pick, who going into his first real year this year, his contract did not kick in last year because he opted out. If you get Orlando Brown and Lucas Niang starting opposite each other this year, your tackle position's costing you $4 million or so against the cap this year. even after Orlando Brown is extended, if Niang is still on his rookie deal at that time, or if Brown is franchise tagged next year and Niang is still on his rookie deal at that time, you're paying your tackles less than the Chiefs were paying their tackles last year, and you've brought in what may end up being one of the highest paid tackles in football in Orlando Brown Jr. That's how busted the math is of the rookie wage scale. And it's why those picks are so important, and really, they're so important to get correct.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the thing that I took away from the mock. It's not that they're going to take Trey Hill and James Wiggins in the 5th rounds, and I've probably fallen too far in love with Israel Mukuamu because he'll go somewhere else in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, and I'll go, this bummed me out. I felt like it would have been such a good fit here.
That was my he may be to you what Jeremy Chin was to me.
I remember liking Jeremy Chin.
Yeah.
I really do. There've been a handful of those guys.
Yeah.
There's always a few of them. They
Jeremy
always end up.
Chin,
They're
the
all
one who got away.
They're all Titans or Bengals for the most part. Was
Yeah.
Jeremy Chin a Patriot?
He is a Cardinal.
Boy, I mean, you might have given me 25 guesses before I would have gotten to Arizona. I don't
Or
remember
wait,
that at all.
no. He's a Panther because Simmons is a Cardinal.
Simmons is a Cardinal. You're
Yes, Chin is a Panther.
right. I would have gotten
those
a Panther
two,
in less than 20.
I got those two mixed up because they are essentially the same player. One was just drafted in the 1st round because he went to Clemson. The other one was drafted in the 2nd round because he went to Southern Illinois, I believe. But they are...
Yes, he went to Southern Illinois.
Look at me go. But they are both incredible safety / linebackers / cornerbacks.
I'm hopeful for these guys, but the takeaway isn't buy your Mukuamu jersey today. The takeaway is
By tomorrow.
get it tomorrow. The takeaway is
Or on Friday when you get paid.
maybe wait until after the draft on Friday and see if he goes to the Chiefs. I would say wait and make that judgment.
Take a chance.
But it's not any of those players. It's not even Diami Brown, who whatever receiver they take in this draft, I'm going to get way too hyped for. I can't help it. It's just in my nature. But it's not about any of those guys specifically. It's about realizing that it's also not that the Chiefs now don't need to hit on these picks because they have their tackle figured out. That would be like, people who like watch Fight Club and then have you guys both seen Fight Club?
Yes.
Have you seen Fight Club?
Yes, it's been a while. I need to rewatch it.
Yeah,
though.
it's been a long time, but I've seen it.
But like, there's like a whole like archetype for people who
He
take
was
Fight
dead the
Club.
whole time.
No, not that. Of people who
The
take.
sleigh was it was really the sleigh all along.
What is that even supposed to be from?
No.
Citizen Kane.
Uh,
Rosebud. It was the sleigh. Or the sled.
I don't remember the last time I saw that movie, to be honest.
You don't watch it every Friday for fun?
I don't.
Anyone who says
No.
they do is a fraud.
I don't know if I've ever
I
seen
think
it,
I either saw that or I saw Casablanca. I can't remember.
I've seen, yeah.
I saw one of the black and white old movies. I've
Well,
seen one of
there's
them.
a lot of more than just one.
Real
Yeah,
what?
I haven't
Yes.
seen
Well, yeah, there's
Citizen
two.
Kane.
There's more than two.
You tell me name a third one.
Let's see. Another black and white movie. Now I'm drawing a blank.
Checkmate here. Checkmate, man.
Dang it!
You know what? And I've seen It's a Wonderful Life, which is
Oh, gosh.
black and white.
Mm,
You don't like It's a Wonderful Life?
no.
Never
Where's
heard
your
of it.
heart? Where's your soul?
It's too long.
It's a
He doesn't
very
have
long
one.
movie.
It's one of
very,
those movies
Hold up.
that I've seen like
How long is it?
a third of in different chunks, and it's like 5 hours long.
What's
I
this
think
movie-
it, I
what's
think
this
it might
movie
be
called?
245.
What's this movie
It's a
called?
Wonderful Life. Have you
It's a
not seen It's a
Wonderful
Wonderful
Life.
Life?
I don't think
God, I
so.
hope my mom's not listening right now. She'll be so
So,
disappointed in both
Here's
of you.
the thing. Beards, I'm pulling it up. It's 130 minutes. That's
2 hours
just
and
over
10
2
minutes.
hours. 2 hours and 10 minutes.
It feels a
so
lot longer
Beards,
than that.
who thinks this movie that is 2 hours and 10 minutes
Man, Rudy, I am
too
so
long,
mad at you for talking
but
right
yet-
through you the stop sign there, man.
praises, loves Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And has and said multiple times that it is not too long.
Yeah.
Yet it's a 3-hour movie.
Well, listen, Rudy. If you're like me and you own the extended editions, it's actually longer.
Fair point, Beards.
And even better.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen It's a Wonderful Life. There's a good chance at some point in school it was put on
There's no, it's a
Yeah.
Christmas
little
movie. It's a
TV
Christmas
rolling
movie.
Yeah, oh,
thing.
yeah, I saw it
In
School.
school?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But is it anything like what's the one their sounds all the world of
What's
sounds
going
or
on?
the sound I
The
forget.
Sound of
The
Music?
Sound of
Sound of
Music?
Music. Yeah,
No.
I've seen that one.
Sound of Music's also not in black and white.
I don't remember.
Really showed me beards by coming up with a grand total of 2 black and white movies.
Bringing
as
Up
I brought a
Baby.
third one. That's not a real movie. You
Yeah, it
made that
is.
up. That's not real. I might never forgive.
Psycho!
I might never forgive Rudy for just talking over beard, saying it feels longer than it actually is.
I did not get
We got to. I'll tell you what. Here's just a
Get it
real.
now.
Mr. Jeremy Jam on Twitch says To Kill a Mockingbird. I've seen that one also.
Never saw it, haven't read it.
Really?
Nope. Never had to do either for school.
Okay, can I tell you this,
That's
Beards?
Shocking.
Do you know that? I don't know if you knew this or not.
What?
Not actually about birds.
Nope.
Not a movie about bird hunting.
I'm out. Well, now I'm definitely not going to see
Beards
it.
just stare at the rabbits. Just keep looking out there at the rabbit farm, Beards.
What?
It's from the book.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've read it. I did see the movie.
I'm
at
thinking of
least
the right
once.
book, right?
I have no
Lenny,
idea, dude.
and squeezes. He hugs the woman too hard.
No, that.
Oh no, that's of Mice and Men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I got those two mixed up.
I don't know. I haven't.
Oh, you
Read
haven't seen
that.
you haven't read or seen Mice and Men?
No.
Yeah, that.
Lenny and George.
Yeah,
No.
Lenny and George. I got To Kill a Mockingbird
Okay.
and a Mice and Men mixed up.
Who
yeah.
catches a bird in the rye?
I don't know. I never had to read
That's
that
also
either.
about a bird, right?
I don't know. The Catcher in the Rye?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Isn't that about a bird?
I don't know.
It's not like a baseball catcher. I think the catcher is a bird, right?
I don't
Which
know.
one was To Kill a Mockingbird? Okay, yeah. I remember this one. I don't think I saw the movie, but I definitely read the book.
What is the catcher?
I think it's Kevin Costner.
God.
What is the catcher in the rye? Johnny Bench. Huh. Funny. The catcher in the rye is someone who saves children from falling off a cliff, which can be understood as a metaphor for entering adulthood.
Ah, controversial.
I wish somebody would have caught me.
I wish somebody would have caught you right outside the door of the studio before this segment started.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page.
Hey, guys.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
It's my favorite old movie, Blown Out with the Wind. Rosebud.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
How did that liner exist? We've done everything twice already.
I told you I have a liner for everything.
Mr. Jeremy Jam on Twitch to the first 17 minutes of The Wizard of Oz.
That kind of counts.
Kind of counts. 12 Angry Men I have seen from my Pyro Chaotic Warriors' Animal Farm.
I have not seen Animal Farm. 12 Angry Men's very good.
Also, I missed this because it happened right at the very beginning of the show, but thanks to both Ice Pyro and Human Torch 101 for both re-upping their subscriptions on the Sports Radio 810 Twitch account. You can do that at twitch.tv/sportsradio810 if you want to watch the show every single night we're on. You can do it on the Twitch, on the Facebook, on the YouTube pages, any of those three. But we like Twitch. We like these Twitch people. I'm enjoying it over here. And of course, I have to read the subscribe messages, so I will do that now. One from Human Torch 101 said I wasn't able to watch the show last night and I lost my streak. Oh no! Time to start a new one. That is the right attitude. Thank you, Human Torch. Sorry you missed your last night's show was good. If you listen to the podcast, we'll forgive you. And then Ice Pyro said we are all going to die on Sunday. Beards, what are you talking about?
I have the audio.
That's what I wanted! I was just about to point at you, and then you were over at the air conditioner.
It was a little warm in here. I was turning it down.
Okay, why don't you turn this up?
I can't guarantee that anybody in the world will be alive Sunday, so I can't guarantee who will be on our roster on Sunday. So that goes for all of us.
Thank you, Ice Pyro, for the subscription.
Truer words have never been spoken.
That's Kyle Shanahan answering a question about if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on the team next week. Are you kidding me?
The answer is no.
Are you kidding me?
Could be. He doesn't know.
Also,
He may
He
be on
could
the
be
team.
dead.
when
Hopefully.
when they traded up to 3, they were like, did you say hopefully?
He did.
No.
They traded up to 3, they're like, Jimmy's our guy. Jimmy G. Jimmy's our guy. We're all about Jimmy. And now it's
So it's Joshua Brisco here from Jimmy Garoppolo Fan Club Monthly. Is Jimmy Garoppolo still going to be a member of your team come this 2021 NFL season?
In a Mac Jones jersey.
hit the
I can't guarantee that anybody in the world will be alive Sunday, so I can't guarantee who will be on our roster on Sunday. So that goes for all of us.
Said in a Mac Jones jersey.
Twitch viewers, you're watching the show, and I'll ask this to Rudy also, who's just sitting right here. Thank you, Pyrotically, it's a good name, for following us on the Twitch channel. You guys are all watching the show, and Rudy is sitting right there. Did you guys see me telegraphing that I was doing a fake question in a press conference so I get that answer from Kyle Shanahan? Does it seem obvious to you?
I plead the fifth.
Rudy wasn't paying attention either.
Yeah, no, you did. You 100% did. I wasn't trying to throw Beards under the bus.
Hey,
It's not something I like to do.
Hey, I'm here at your press conference, Josh Brisco. It's me, Bosh Driscoll, and I'm a reporter for the Almost Entirely a newspaper. And I just had a question. Is Beards McFly going to be running the show tomorrow night?
I can't guarantee that anybody in the world will be alive Sunday, so I can't guarantee who will be on our roster on Sunday. So that goes for all of us.
He's not wrong.
he's not wrong. No, he's not wrong. That's true.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Not wrong.
He could be wrong.
How could he be wrong? 'Cause I
No,
think he's
'cause
not
he
wrong.
doesn't know.
I think we've established
Yeah,
he's
he's
not
just
wrong.
not
Play it
wrong.
one more time. At your
I
earliest
can't
convenience.
guarantee that anybody in the world will be alive Sunday, so I can't guarantee who will be on our roster on Sunday. So that goes for all of us.
I missed the space bar.
Yeah.
Listen, the keyboard was a little farther back than I was expecting. I just missed it the first time.
Yeah, we really need to get rid of all those damn gremlins who are always in there making the studio too hot and moving the keyboard too far away, because that's not none of those things are in your control. Beards, during the break, you told me something about Rotten Tomatoes and Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Say that again really quick, because then I have a follow-up to that I just saw pop up on Twitter.
So they found an 80-year-old review of Citizen Kane that was negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so they published it up on Rotten Tomatoes, and it brought it down from 100% certified fresh to, I don't know what the percentage is now, it's probably 99 or whatever.
It is 99.
It's 99. Are you going to say what I think you're going to say, which is what I'm about to say?
Is it the new highest rated
Yes.
movie in the history of Rotten Tomatoes?
Yes. Paddington 2.
Hell yeah, it's Paddington 2. I have not seen Paddington 2 yet, and
I
I
haven't
feel
seen
like at
either
this
of 'em.
point, I don't know if you need to watch the first one.
What's Paddington?
You really don't know? You could be. It's okay. You just tell us. I need you to answer my
It's
question.
a bear,
though.
right? It's like a little
It's
bear.
a little bear. It's a little bear wears a little raincoat, little rain hat, walks around doing bear stuff, pooping in the woods or whatever bears do.
Just a little bear doing bear stuff.
It's just 90 minutes of an animated bear just taking huge dumps in the woods, and it's the greatest film ever made, apparently. I'm still not sure I finished my point from the first segment. It's now been 40 minutes.
I don't even remember your point, to be honest.
JT said he's a prophet being Kyle Shanahan, and we're all going to die. And I wonder, because I don't think he's predicting. I don't think it's prophecy.
He's just saying we could be. Like, he cannot predict the future because he is not a prophet. That is what he's saying. He's saying, I am not a prophet. I cannot predict the future. For all I know, tomorrow a meteor could hit planet Earth. Who knows?
He's more of a philosopher than a prophecy teller.
Yes.
He's not
A
telling you.
prophet?
Thank you. Boy, I was really struggling, dude. It's partially because I have the joke in the chamber right now, and I've been trying so hard to get to the joke that I forgot the word prophet.
Did you forget the joke too now?
No, the joke's here. I was gonna have to
Okay.
reload it a little bit. Sorry, Beards. Did I forget the joke? Did I forget the Joe Tooney? Is that what you said? Oh, the joke too. Knee.
Sorry, I missed the space bar there.
What I was going to say is that he's being more of a philosopher than a prophet.
Yeah.
In a kind of nihilistic fashion. So from this point forward, he should be known as Kyle Shanahan Nietzsche. It works better in Twitter form.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
very hard to
Does it?
say Shanahan Nietzsche.
I was going to
Shanahan
say
Nietzsche. Kyle Shanahan Nietzsche.
we're on the same page here because I was going to say he's more of a Nietzsche, but I was going to mispronounce his last name than a Nostradamus.
Kyle Shanahan and Nostradamus.
He's not that, though.
It'd be cool if he was.
Yeah, it would be.
That would roll off the tongue a whole lot better.
Hey, here's the thing. If he was, he might have a couple Super Bowl rings.
At least one. Because he could have said we need a better quarterback to not overthrow Emmanuel Sanders there, and also we should stop Wasp.
Also, he was the offense coordinator, when the Falcons were up 20.
I guess he should have two. That's a great
Yeah,
point. You
that's-
know what, Rudy? I don't take back any of the mean stuff I said to you last segment, but I give you your dub when you earned it.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
The ratio is not great,
Yeah,
but it's better than it was 30 seconds ago.
220 keeps you in the big leagues. On a bad team. Just Chris Owens of radio.
Does that describe us? Are we a bad team in the big leagues? Are we a good team in the minors? Are we a bad team in the minors? Are we
I think
unaffiliated?
ESPN
I
Kansas
think-
City was the minor leagues.
I think we're an up
I
and
think that's true.
coming team in the big leagues. Like, we're young. Like, we're the 2011 Royals. Like, right? Hosmer's been called up. Moustakas has been called up. The team's still not necessarily good yet, but it's trending up. You know good things are coming. We just got to work. We just got to work. We just got to get there.
That's awfully optimistic of you.
I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to get there or not because, like, we all might be dead come Sunday.
That's a great point. Is there a pun that I can get for Salazar?
But if
the
for some
famous
reason, the world doesn't end on Sunday
nihilistic philosopher.
or any Sunday, perchance, because maybe it's not this Sunday, maybe it's the following Sunday, or the Sunday after that. If just any Sunday we just survive one more Sunday, it could be our week.
So let's agree on this real quick, and I know we need to take a break. Or are we going full? Are we going until the end of the hour?
No,
Beards?
we're going to take a break.
What's the best day for the world to end on? Like day of the week, or if you want to get more
Monday?
specific, I think that's fine. See, I kind of disagree. I think it might be Sunday. Because here's the thing. You get your Friday, you get your Saturday, and then Sunday, if I say quick, put a modifier before the word Sunday, what do you think of? I know my answer, and I might be just trying to force you guys to have the same answer.
What I guess so I'm fine with Sunday as long as it's Sunday night. Like
Well,
I
it's
want
hard to say.
a Sunday at like 8 p.m.
Whenever I think of Sunday, I think of Lazy Sunday. Lazy Sunday is a thing people say. It's like a name of
It's the name of a Lonely Island song.
It's also the name of a Calvin and Hobbes little book.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, let's go read some of the great philosophers of our time, including Bill Watterson.
It really is, though.
But I think you're having a nice lazy Sunday later in the day. Let's say sunset. Sunset feels appropriate.
I'm good with that.
The sun is dropping down on a Sunday.
You know the day is over.
You're watching some
about to start.
baseball, but you're not quite in that tomorrow's Monday phase yet. Maybe you're watching Sunday Night Football is about to start. You've enjoyed a great day of NFL football, had a couple of brewskis, had some crappy food.
Okay, wait. So are the Chiefs playing Sunday night or Monday night? Because then maybe I want to push it back a day or two because I want to go out watching Patrick Mahomes throw a football.
They wrapped up. They just wrapped up.
Cool.
Chiefs game just wrapped up.
Perfect.
And you're in that. They won.
Yeah.
I think right there. Boom. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm
If
good.
I got to pick a day of the week, I think it's probably Sunday. You
It's
can't
right
have a
after
midweek.
Chiefs
The world
win.
can't end on a Wednesday, right? Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys for playing with me in this space. At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
All right, if you come back tomorrow, the show will be better, I promise.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
On the Twitch stream, JT said you needed James Shields for the 2011 Royals. Here's the issue. With Rudy's analogy, if we're the 2011 Royals, I think the issue is that we are Jeff Francoeur, Chris Getz, and Matt Trainer. Or maybe Alcides Escobar.
Can one of us be Brandon Finnegan?
Well, he was 2015.
Dang it! No, he wasn't. He was 14.
We're on 11 right now,
No.
so.
Brandon Finnegan was.
Yeah, he played in the wild card game.
Do you want a mind bleep that really bleeped my mind?
Oh, yeah, okay, my bad, Beards. It was 2014. We're talking about 2011.
We're on 2011, Beards.
Never mind.
Try to keep up.
Can I be Jeff Francoeur?
Melky Cabrera was on that 2011 Royals team.
Jeff Francoeur, I think that was the one good year he had with the Royals. 2011, if I remember right. I think it was him and Melky and Gordon had. That was the year the Royals' entire outfit.
Who's Keela Kaiahui?
Beards.
Beards, you want to be Keela Kaiahui?
Sure.
What about
Too good
Brian
for the
Pena?
minors, not good enough for the big leagues.
Johnny Giovitella?
I just want to be Frenchie.
I thought we were going to be done with the Royals coverage, but clearly we were wrong. We just needed the 2011 Royals. An hour of Seth Keysor next.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Love the new car smell but think the car shopping process stinks? Check out OneRequest.com. Hi, this is Eric Westfall. We started OneRequest in Kansas City to make car shopping easy. We have over 5 million new and used listings. And with OneRequest, you don't share your personal information with sellers until you want to, which means you control your car shopping experience. We even have a concierge service for those who want the VIP treatment. Experience car shopping made easy. Request your car today at OneRequest.com.
OneRequest is not responsible for what you do with all the time you save.
Hello, everybody. Jack Harry here for Shoal Creek Golf Club. It has been my favorite course in the Kansas City area for years and years. Shoal Creek in the Northland is rated #1 in Missouri by Golf Advisor and is open to the public and always has excellent course conditions and a beautiful 11,000 square foot clubhouse. It's perfect for weddings, banquets, and corporate events. So come on out to the Northland and check out Shoal Creek. You'll love it. 816-407-7242 or online at shoalcreekgolf.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
I'm attorney Mike DePasquale. I played linebacker. I won a state championship. I played Division I ball. I know a thing or two about winning. The winning attitude starts with confidence. My law firm is so confident in what we do that if we take your injury case and we don't win, you don't pay us a dime. So if you've been hurt, call me. My team wants to win for you. I've got this.
Mike's got this. All you need to know. 816-888-7500. Mike's got this.
Hey guys, remember when you used to look forward to intimacy? Do you find yourself getting anxious or stressed out about it, even avoiding the situation? Studies show that more than half of men over 50 will experience ED over the course of their life. Viagra only works some of the time, and side effects can be brutal. West Coast Men's Health uses acoustic wave energy to treat the real cause of ED. By breaking down plaque, blood flow is restored, and you're back in the game. No pills, no shots, no pain. Isn't it time you put the stress of ED behind you for good? Schedule a consultation today at westcoastmenshealth.com or give us a call.
Call West Coast Men's Health at 913-243-3200. That's 913-243-3200. Call now, 913-243-3200. HSA cards welcome.
Sports Radio 810's coverage of the NFL Draft is presented by CBD American Shaman. Stop by your local American Shaman or visit them online at cbdamericanshaman.com. By the Operating Engineers Local 101 Apprentice Program. Learn to operate all types of heavy equipment and specialized construction machinery. 101apprenticeship.com or call 816-640-2336. And by Pro-Built Pool and Patio. Get a free quote by calling 816-786-3893 or go to probuiltpatio.com.
Now it's time for very serious football talk with the man who met his wife on a blind date, chaperoned by his parents.
They actually came along on the first date with us. That was No! I rode in the back seat. I was 22.
The man who needs to take a minute to remember the names of all of his children.
Do all of your kids have the same first letter?
No, actually. Let me think. Do any of them? Tucker, Mason, Cole, Isabel, and Lucas.
The man who can defend you in court, but will probably choose not to.
I'll copter this on a public setting right now. I am an aggressive cuddler in a consensual sense.
Comma, officer.
Good grief, he's a pastor too? When does this guy sleep?
You will find Seth Keysor everywhere except for in his or your bed, because not only does he not sleep, he's also a faithful husband. So that's important.
It's Seth Keysor of The Athletic on Almost Entirely Sports.
Just like we all surely anticipated, just here a few days ahead of the NFL draft as we get ready for our Tuesday conversation with Seth Keysor of the Chief of the North newsletter and The Athletic and the Times Ours podcast, we're not talking about the 31st overall pick anymore. I haven't yet asked Seth what happened to the Penei Sewell film review that he had partway in progress. I do know, though, what we're talking about again. As everyone would have predicted, the Chiefs have traded for Orlando Brown. They sent a whole package of draft picks, got a pick back, got Orlando Brown Jr., and now it's not the tackle ranking, Seth, that I was so excited to talk to you about this week. It's not a prediction of what the Chiefs are going to do at 31 or moving up or moving down or the tier list of all of the tackles in this year's class. No, we're going to talk about your brand new Orlando Brown Jr. film review up on the Chief in the North newsletter. What did happen to all of that rookie assessment, though?
I was not in the writing phase yet. I was in the note-taking phase. And so those notes weren't angrily discarded. But one could mistake that action for anger. Sure. But it was just, well, that's that. I even thought about writing an article, like talking about them, but I was like, this feels like a waste of my time, because the writing itself does take time. And so that's just much like the Times Ours podcast that we recorded, and which I kind of wish I don't think I've permanently deleted that recording. But I've tried to explain to people how done we were, like how exactly timed the Orlando Brown signing or trade was. Yep. I mean, we weren't, to say we were wrapping up makes it sound like, oh, we might have been done in a few minutes. We had literally were in the process of, well, and you were just went, oh my gosh, no, oh my God, the show's ruined. Yep. And it was literally right as we finished. And so it was a similar thing to that, where it's like, well, we all had a lot of fun. And we'll just move on to another day. But on the plus side, I had the very, very, very good comfort of watching a good young player who is now playing in a position where a couple days ago the Chiefs were planning on starting, I think it was Hopes and Dreams at the left tackle position. And now instead they have a 6'8", 345-pound behemoth of a human there.
Yeah, to expand on where we're at with Times Ours also, I've told this story enough now that this detail has been cemented into my head. We had just passed the 58-minute mark of the podcast. It was, I don't know if we had said all the Twitter handles and stuff, but like I was really about to throw it. I think you were probably done talking for the episode, because you usually kind of have a dismount, and then I go to wrap-up mode, and then I throw it to Nate for the show to end. That's usually how the show ends. 9 out of 10 times, or 90 out of 100 and sometimes, that's how the show ends. And I believe I was in my final little wrap-up, and we'll do another show early next week, and we'll talk about all the, oh no, Schefter! I may have just started screaming Schefter, and it's all gone.
You did say that. You said Schefter, and I was just kind of like, you were like, oh, the show is ruined, and I thought you were doing a bit of some sort. And then I was like, oh, crud, and then I looked at Twitter, and I was like, oh, come on. Like, what are the chances?
Yeah. We also, I've mentioned this, we mentioned this on the emergency pod we did immediately after. I think I mentioned this on AES this week at some point, or last week. Yeah, it would have been this week, because that was Monday was the only show we had after the trade. Where on April 1st, we did a podcast where you and I attempted to prank Nate by announcing the Orlando Brown trade as we were recording, maybe thinking he hadn't seen the news yet. That was literally a prank that we did, and I think I sent a first and a third round pick, by the way, to Baltimore. I have to go back and check the tapes on that one, but then it was the actual news at the end of a show, and if we do ever get your long-lost recording, I might be able to stitch together just a little bit of a few of the highlights of that show, because that episode was great. and then it ceased to exist.
There was a lengthy journey into how good looking Stephen Amell is, and my potentially tenuous relationship with my wife and the truth in terms of how honest she is with me about how good looking guys are. And it was I think back now and I'm like, man, we went off for a bit there, which I'm sure is hard for people to believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is funny. What's interesting, you want to know how I know the Chiefs got value? Because let's talk about Brown, the player, in a minute.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with Brown value? Do you want to talk about what they got in return? Do you want me to talk about Brown as a player first?
I want you to I want you to chase your bliss, but I do also want to mention that not only was there a lengthy conversation about Stephen Amell, I think I also may have been maybe the most hurtful joke I've ever made at your expense on the podcast. And it really does sort of bother me that that's not going to get heard by more people, because I feel like it was a little bit too mean, but I still did want it out there.
Here's the interesting thing, and what people are going to wonder now who are listening is, well, what was the joke? Tell us. It would actually be impossible to set it up without doing the 10-minute sideways, whatever roundabout that we went on, and the timing of it. You actually hurt my feelings for a second. And I was like, but not in a mean way. And that's the thing. I want people to know. It wasn't like you said something like, well, it was mean.
Right.
But it was like, it was so like, I was like genuinely taken aback, but not in like a terrible way. It really was like, I wasn't upset. I was like, oh man. Oh, that's a good point. Like it was bad. And I wish people would get it, but I just know that it happened. And that is upsetting. It might have been, I was thinking as we were rapping that I thought it was one of the best episodes we'd ever done.
Oh, man. We can say that confidently now because the whole episode's definitely not going to come out. The whole episode was about tackles in the 31st pick. Like, that was 98% of the show.
It was all ruined. Like, the frustration in your voice and Danielle's voice afterwards.
Oh.
And poor Danielle, she never gets flustered. And she did a little there. She was just upset. She was like, guys, I don't think we can salvage any of this. I mean, it is all about that. But, now that we know no one will ever hear it, I mean, we should be like, man, it was so unexpected that, that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Jesus all popped in for brief segments.
Yeah,
like,
and they all did segments. We got some great business ideas that I guess we'll just have to do for ourselves now.
Yeah.
Jesus told us some stocks to buy, which I thought was weird, but I was thankful for.
Well, and knowing when the second coming's occurring is valuable information.
Yeah,
but,
and also we know who the Chiefs' second-round picks are going to be. When Brett Veach called in and said, "Here's our big board," he just texted us the big board. I was like, "Oh, let's break that down." I didn't save it. I read it on the podcast and thought, "Well, now that's on the podcast, we'll have it forever."
That was actually one of the drier parts of the podcast where you just read a list of players' names. But no, it was something else. I was just gonna say it's interesting that. When we pranked Nate, you and I talked a little bit in advance, and we were just like, we'll say a first and a third because it's got to be realistic, and they're not going to get him for less than that. And then they kind of did, which I mean, they did send their first and a third, and a fourth and a fifth, which sounds terrible in a way, but they got back a second round pick, which is obviously a big deal. And then in 2022, they got back a sixth that kind of helps offset the fifth from 2022. I think the Chiefs will be picking lower than the Rams, considering
Ravens. Ravens. You know what Team Orlando Brown Jr. plays for. I just wanted to save you the tweets.
Oh man, the Ravens, Ravens. Look, let's be honest. They have the same number of wins against the Chiefs in the last 3 years. How's that?
Wow.
No, dang it, the Rams actually beat them. Oh, that was going to be such good trash talk. But it turns out I don't pay attention to anything, and I owe Chris Sims another apology.
Well, let's not.
Anyway. But it's fascinating, like, overall, it eventually, depending on what value chart you use, it's probably like a late first. It's the equivalent in a lot of ways as though the Chiefs just shipped off that first-round pick.
Yeah.
And then just left everything else alone. I think the gap between second-round picks and third-round picks is substantial. Like, more so than, like, the difference between a fifth-round pick and a sixth-round pick. Do I have any data to support that? No, I don't. But I don't care. I still like it. And plus it makes me happy for this year, right? Hey, 2 second rounders to play with. So Veach was able to get a better deal than we thought he could.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get 2 second round picks to talk about and have fun with.
The one thing I would add to that's something bordering on information. It's not the whole way there, but it's something close. Because Veach had said in his presser whenever he was lying to us that he felt like there were 16 or 17 like day one impact players on their board, which we decided probably didn't include the quarterbacks or any running backs, right? So maybe it was 20 or 21 picks down the line. And so there's a chance you get one of those guys at 31. But last night we were talking to Verderam on the show, and Verderam was saying he's pretty much heard that there's a big drop-off after about 75. Well, the Chiefs now still have 2 picks between that, let's say, 20 to 75 range. They had 2, and now they still do. Now, their first one is 27 spots later or whatever. But to your point, like, I'm not, in my philosophy being that this is all a bit of a dart throw, and it does hurt me a little bit that they have net fewer picks by a couple here, but one of them was going to be for Orlando Brown, so I'm chilling. But like, yeah. I'll take that range, and also knowing that Veach isn't terribly high on how deep the pool gets with all the guys that went back to school for an extra year and all that stuff. I would be the person to sweat about it a little bit, and I'm not sweating about it.
I think that's a really good way of phrasing it. There's stuff that you don't want to have fewer picks, especially when you talk about them in terms of the dartboard, right? Because that's really what draft picks are. No matter how, we'll say it this way, NFL teams are maybe about as good as you can get at drafting players. Let's be charitable and say that, right? But because there's really not much of a difference in success, although there are some teams that are like noticeably worse than other teams, but let's say competent NFL teams, right? Say there's 20 of them or whatever. They're about the same, so it's a dartboard because it's really hard to know who's going to succeed and who's going to fail, right? I mean, remember when Aaron Curry was going to light the league on fire? Well, I suppose at that, I mean, you would have just been maybe getting started at that point. That was the 2010 draft.
That was because I think they took Tyson Jackson over him at 3. I think that's the same draft.
That might have been the 2011 draft. I'm trying to remember. That might have been the draft they took Barry. I'm sure someone will let me know.
I will let you know because I remember Aaron Curry pretty well.
Oh, he was the sure thing. He was a linebacker who ran under a 4.5.
No, so he did go. Don't ever test me on my 2009 NFL draft history because I told a story about this a couple days ago that I will retell you now. Tyson Jackson went 3. Aaron Curry went 4. I was so annoyed at the Tyson Jackson pick. I was at the Chiefs draft party because they're picking so high. It's just like an hour there, you know. I think I was in the practice facility or like in their over at like their practice field or something at the time. I don't remember where exactly it was, but it was somewhere down around Arrowhead. And I remember at this point I would have been 14 years old, I think. This pick got made for Tyson Jackson. And I remember vividly, like, saying, not loud enough for, like, Mitch Holthus to hear me, but loud enough for my dad to hear me, go, what are they doing? And I was, I think, 14.
Well, and everyone knew. Like, Tyson Jackson, everyone's like, are you kidding? And Tyson Jackson had a much better career than Aaron Curry.
Yeah.
And I mean, was it a 3 overall career? No. But he was a competent NFL player for, like, 8 years. Hey, fair enough. Good for you, Tyson Jackson. You know, get your money, man. And so it's a crapshoot in a lot of ways, and you likened it to, you know, a dartboard where you can stand a little closer, stand a little farther away. I think once you get like to certain rounds, you're standing a lot farther away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's just hard. So I like having more shots. But you know, if one of the things you're going to get back is one of those dart throws is closer than the dart throw you gave away, like the second round pick, right? 58 compared to 94. That's a pretty substantial, you know, that's a couple steps closer to the dartboard. That's a big deal. So it's an interesting thing. And then, of course, what they're paying for is the certainty, or at least as much as you can get.
Right.
And that's where, you know, getting into the player himself, Brown is what they would hope, already at this point, Brown is what they would hope a guy they picked at 31 could be.
And it's one thing also where I'm guessing that it did still serve you well to go through all that work at 31 because the Chiefs did all that work for tackles who could be there at 31, and they decided to trade for Orlando Brown. So I imagine there's some lines to connect there. But whenever, other than that podcast is ruined, let's do another podcast. Whenever that news came down, you had time to go in a little bit as you were even entering the film review. The cost, we've established, feeling pretty good about, all things considered. There are some little things in the margins there, but I'm honestly, at this point, I'm not terribly interested in them. It seems like that's demanded too much of the conversation at this point. And they give up essentially their first-round picks, and then they scoot around some other things. Whatever, fine. But as you said, they were starting hopes and dreams. It was all one word on the back of the jersey at left tackle, and now they go get Orlando Brown. I guess I want to know what you think that move says about where the Chiefs' heads are at and going into the draft and what they're doing for Patrick Mahomes and what they wanted to do for this offense and how much they've overhauled this offensive line. And then we can get into some of the nitty-gritty of Orlando Brown.
I mean, we can see now that the Chiefs, when they said they were going to overhaul the offensive line, when they said that was the priority this offseason, I believed them. I didn't realize it was going to be so much.
Yeah.
I mean, you are talking at the minimum, the absolute minimum, you're going to have 4 starters along the line who weren't starting last year, unless Andrew Wiley can beat out both Kyle Long and Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, which seems less than likely. Not saying it couldn't happen, but it seems less than likely. And so you're talking, it's very likely to have 4 new starters, brand new starters from last year. If it's Kyle Long, it's 4 people who have never played for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then if Lucas Niang beats out Mike Remmers at the right tackle spot, which, by the way, is the best case scenario for the Chiefs. You and I have been over that.
Yep.
Mike Remmers is the roller coaster guy. Lucas Niang says, hey, I'm actually taller. Great.
Right.
And he is taller, I think. Mike Remmers is a big dude, actually. So, anyway, then you've got 5 guys who didn't start last year, potentially. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I've never even heard of that. I'm sure it's happened, but that's crazy. And so I took them seriously when they said they were going to overhaul the offensive line. But you see now that when Brett Veach, it seems like every offseason, like when I really thought about it, it seems like they view themselves as having one specific issue, even if that issue is kind of a big one, and they just attack the daylights out of it. So after the 2018 season, the specific issue was the defense, right? Defense is trash, got to do something about it. And they kind of, like, if you really look at the roster turnover, that's why when people say, well, this is all John Dorsey's roster, on offense, I think there's some good points to be made there. But if you look at what happened on defense, there was a buttload of turnover, for lack of a better term. And so then after the 2019 season, the big problem that they faced was, how do we keep the band together in an unprecedented offseason? And, there's some people that have issues with the idea of run it back, but I mean, they made it to the Super Bowl. And they were an unprecedented number of injuries on the offensive line from, I think, having a much better chance at running it back. I mean, right now, the narrative about the Chiefs versus the Buccaneers, obviously, is the Buccaneers were the much better team with a much better plan, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Chiefs had just beaten them like 2 months earlier.
Right.
And, I mean, it just is what it is. Sometimes injuries stink.
Yeah.
And it just happens. Yeah. So it was a good idea that just they came 1 game short. A season where you end losing the Super Bowl is a great season. And now they entered this offseason with, I think, an unexpected problem with the injuries of the offensive line. I think they were going to retool the offensive line regardless. I think Joe Thuney's a Chief, whether Schwartz and Fisher are injured or not. I obviously don't think they trade for Orlando Brown.
Right.
But I think they still trade for. I still think they sign Thuney, and I think they probably go heavy on offensive line, like maybe some backup guys. Maybe they still grab Blythe. Maybe, you know what I mean. They just make some moves. So I think what you're seeing is, okay, Patrick Mahomes has gotten it done with some issues up front, but a generally average offensive line with 2 really good tackles, or 1 really good tackle and 1 good tackle. So now we need to just break, like they are not interested in rebuilding the offensive line. They're interested in, we are going to try to make it a strength and then move forward. That's what I see here. Like they're not looking to waste a year trying to make the offensive line cohesive or rebuild it over the course of a couple of years. They're like, nope, we want it now.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. And this is going to be a part of a larger conversation here also, and I may have lied about the order of operations for our conversation here, because doing it in 1 year is expensive. We've seen that. It's been expensive for them. It would be expensive for anybody. It's one of the values of the draft picks and getting your picks right and all that stuff. Trading for Orlando Brown is a hefty amount of draft capital. It wasn't 2 firsts and an immediate contract, and we'll see about the contract and how that ends up panning out. For Joe Thuney, no picks, but they make him the highest paid guard in football, which is not something I'm typically wanting my team to hitch their wagon to, but I also understand the logic. Frankly, we talked about Thuney a lot as like the guy beside a rookie tackle. I think I might be more excited about Thuney being beside hopefully an elite left tackle, because I think the ceiling on that just is very fun. I'm just enamored by it. But you do see what that costs to do that all in one off season, but also it's a vital thing. It ended up being a vital thing for them to do. So I've got a larger thing I want to pitch to you later. But in terms of like trying to have more worthwhile conversations about some of this, can we just say both of those things are true? Like, this is expensive and also not ideal, and the Chiefs would have rather had 2 rookie tackles coming in to start on each side. They'd rather Eric Fisher not have been hurt and still been on this roster. But given where they're at, they did spend a lot of money to fix this issue in one offseason, and also, at least as of right now, the roster is significantly better for it.
Absolutely. It costs money to get more of a sure thing. Everything comes at a price. And that's what's happened with Thuney, right? To get a guy that has been a very, 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 very good left guard for like 3 straight years, right? That costs money. It costs a lot of money. Consistency. And he's gotten better every year too. That costs money. To get an ascending player, and we'll talk about Brown in more detail, because he's 24.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to think about with regards to that. He's not even 2 years older than Tevin Jenkins.
It's hilarious.
It is hilarious. Yeah. And so that costs money, and they were willing to pay the price in order to ensure that they could try to build while still being a contender. Like, they don't seem interested in taking a year off from being a contender. And if I were to guess, and I could be way off here, while Patrick Mahomes is going to be a Chief, and this is a 50,000 feet in the air thing, and it's something that's not going to affect the Chiefs for probably at least another 3 or 4 years, but it's worth noting. Patrick Mahomes is going to be a Chief for a long time. It's going to be hard for them to have a surefire Hall of Fame tight end during that entire time. It's going to be hard to have a guy who is arguably one of the best 2 or 3 wide receivers in the league that entire time. I think they understand that what they have right now, I assume their goal is to be a Super Bowl contender every year they have Patrick Mahomes, and they probably should be. But they also see, and people talk about this all the time, having Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill on the same team is unbelievable. And I think they see that, especially now having them also with Mahomes at his maybe his apex. I mean, he's still so young. But having a Travis Kelce and a Tyreek Hill in Andy Reid's offense is something that I think one thing you're seeing when maybe they're treating this as the Mahomes Kelce Hill window. I could see that. Yeah. And their thought is, you know what? We're not going to waste that window with a trio that, and again, this might be a depressing thing for Chiefs fans to think about, but I do think, we're talking 3 or 4 years down the road. I don't know how you ever get that talented a trio again.
Yeah.
And so you don't waste that. And I think that if that's the mindset, I'm all on board with that. I don't ever want to waste a single year of Patrick Mahomes' career. And I think there'll always be a contender, whether it's a legit favorite or a fringe contender. I think there'll always be a contender for the Super Bowl when he's a quarterback. But with this trio, I think you see some urgency there, like, no. We're not going to waste a year with a bad line. Yeah. We're just not going to do it. And I think that's part of what you see them paying for. In addition to just, I want to see what Patrick Mahomes looks like behind a really good offensive line. Yeah. And what we've had is really good tackle play and some questions in the middle. Man, I sure would have loved, the best the Chiefs offensive line has been over the last half decade was 2017. And then you saw some different guys leave and some guys go downhill. It would have been nice to see that in 2019. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And so I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah. I think that look down the road is actually one that I haven't heard a whole bunch about, and a very valuable one in that conversation. So I like that. Let me go ahead and throw this at you now before we do get to the specifics of the player that this is all spurred on by. Because I was thinking about this, and I was doing what all people should do, and I was tweeting through it a couple days ago. I was mostly reading through it, and then kind of came to this conclusion of just a phrase that I feel like if we adopted more wholeheartedly across just Chiefs Twitter, it would sand down some of the rough edges that end up cutting so many people. So here's the thing. The Chiefs trading for Orlando Brown makes them better. In the immediate and almost certainly in the long term, it's very unlikely that pick would have turned into somebody better than Orlando Brown. That money that they'll be paying Brown eventually, could that end up not being worth it? Could that be better somewhere else? Maybe. But we don't really know. And I think this is where a lot of analysis gets very binary, and it ends up undercutting from the analyst to the listener to the fan to everybody. It ends up making everybody stupider, where having more big contracts, as the Chiefs do, and right now several of their big contracts have several different, I think, values to them. Joe Tooney, TBD. Orlando Brown's eventual contract, TBD. Tyrann Mathieu, been worth it. Frank Clark's, I'm going to tell you, I don't think has been worth it. Chris Jones's, again, mostly TBD. He's just into it, really. But think we expect that to be worth it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mahomes's will be worth it. Tyreek Hill's worth it. Travis Kelce, not that expensive, actually. But they're also working with fewer picks now. When you have fewer picks and more big contracts, what doesn't happen is that you immediately become a genius or an idiot. What happens is that your margin for error significantly narrows. So for the Chiefs in this year's draft, their 2 second-round picks, they needed their first pick to be a starting tackle until they traded for Orlando Brown. Now they don't. What they do need, though, is for their picks to be guys who are in maybe in the immediate, but really next year, filling significant roles. I'm not even saying they have to be stars and starters, but you need your draft class to bring you guys filling significant roles so you don't have to pay Frank Clark and an Alex Okafor, or to pay, really honestly, Orlando Brown and Joe Tooney and Mike Remmers, although he's a fine, Kyle Long, those guys are actually fine price tags, but whenever you have a top-heavy roster, as many people have talked about, I think fairly, it doesn't mean you're either destined for definite success or doomed for failure, but it means that your L'Jarius Sneeds need to be happening. And also, to shoehorn in my favorite topic, you probably shouldn't make a vanity pick at 32 because you think it would be a cool hood ornament on your offense. That guy might not have anything to do with your team that year, but you have to be able to fill these roles when you have value in those margins later down the road. And even just for myself, thinking more about the margins for error, narrowing or widening, depending on what different teams have been doing, I've felt like my thinking has gotten a little bit healthier because it does put everything on a spectrum, which is a much, I think, fairer way of analyzing things. So I don't know. What do you make of that? Is that something that is going to land us anywhere better?
Maybe, yeah. I like that idea, in terms of margin of error. And I think it really, in terms of having a healthy dialogue, I think the best thing to do is to take a deep breath and understand that there is no one line of thought that's going to be 100% accurate with these conversations.
Right.
And I think in our search for certainty, if we really want to be philosophical about it, I think it's an uncertain world. And there are some things that need certainty that maybe don't get as much certainty as we'd like. And so we try to push that certainty into everything. Maybe I think that would help with sanity too. Yeah. I really like your thoughts on the margin for error stuff. And so then the question becomes, okay, what do they need what does this mean in a broader sense? What does it mean they need? And you made a really good point. In one way, it lessens their margin for error with that 31st pick that they no longer have, right? Because they needed that to hit.
Right.
Like if they took a tackle there, their margin for error was nothing.
Yeah.
Like they needed that. And it seems like the Chiefs don't like being in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Like in needing a draft pick to hit.
Which is probably a good philosophy in most cases.
Yes.
Unless you're taking a quarterback, I guess. The Jags or the Jets need their quarterbacks to be good.
They do. And then if not, then you go back to the well here in a couple of years.
Yep.
I mean, you just the NFL has gotten better about that, like realizing when it's time to cut bait and move on. Yep. I think the thing with draft picks you need eventually, and this is my thought on the draft, you need to be able to get average starters in the draft. You need to be able to get them from somewhere. Don't care where you get them, right? In terms of stars, if you are able to land average starters in the draft, you can overpay for stars elsewhere because you filled out your roster, and like that's where people talk about like depth, right? Mm-hmm. You filled out your roster elsewhere. So like with the Chiefs, okay, so they pay for Brown, etc. Okay, well now they don't need to fill out left tackle. So they can fill out offensive line depth or a center, right? Or a linebacker or a cornerback. Maybe this is the year. They draft a corner.
No, don't do it. They'll take one in the fourth round again. It'll be fine.
Yeah, take him in the fourth round. Have him be awesome like L'Jarius Sneed. I'll be perfectly happy with that. It just does, the way you frame it in terms of shrinking the margin for error with, top-heavy rosters, kind of like you said. It's like the catchphrase people are using right now. But there's truth to it. And that, hey, there's another thing. Speaking of being in a healthy spot mentally, just because something has been hammered to death, and maybe even in an annoying way, doesn't make it less true. Mm-hmm. It's either true or it's not, right? Mm-hmm. And they are a top-heavy roster. Now, that just because you accept that doesn't mean you need to accept every single argument that's been made about it.
Yeah.
But, you can assign that value how you want, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Maybe a top-heavy roster isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're able to fill out the margins. If you can get the Tershawn Whartons of the world to take some snaps and actually provide value. If, let's say this next year, Willie Gay Jr. finally, gets his legitimate shot, and he is a plus-level starter, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to change some narratives about the Chiefs in the draft, even though it's just one player.
Yeah.
Because that's how important it is with that margin of error shrunk. Mm-hmm. So that's a long road to a short thought of me saying, yes, I agree with that completely.
Boom. That's all I needed. I just needed Josh. I agree with that completely. And I can sleep at night. We got very philosophical there, which I'm very happy to do. But if you'd like to make up some just sort of sports talk radio points, right now, if you just stay right there, I can make a radio tease that is going straight for a Marconi.
That sounds amazing.
We're going to take a break here on Almost Entirely Sports, and whenever we come back, Seth Keysor of the Chief in the North newsletter, The Athletic, and the Times Ours podcast is going to tell us if the Chiefs...
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Kansas City, this is Nate Bukaty, announcer for Sporting KC. I'm teaming up with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City to recognize administrators, teachers, and students who make our community a better place to live, work, and play. Each Blue KC Sporting Samaritan will be recognized at a Sporting KC home match, receive tickets to the match, Sporting KC merchandise, and more. To learn more about the program and nominate your Blue KC Sporting Samaritan, just go to sportingkc.com/BlueKC.
Hey folks, it's Lebo here for CertaPro Painters, my favorite painting company. I've been working with them for years, inside our home and outside. They always nail it, perfect every time. Now why is that? Well, each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated, so they really care about our community. Your satisfaction is important to them. You can start the process of getting a bid right now by logging on to CertaPro.com. That's Certa with a C. You can schedule a free estimate and check out all the services CertaPro Painters has to offer. Spring is here, so it's definitely time to get on their exterior painting schedule. We just got through a winter with plenty of snow and those extremely cold temps. Weather like that can take a toll on your paint, especially around your windows. You've got to protect what's likely your biggest investment, your home. CertaPro painters can help you with that, just like they did with me. My exterior still looks great years after CertaPro painted it. But they don't just paint homes, they can help you with your business as well. It's CertaPro painters. Schedule your free estimate at CertaPro.com right now. That's Certa with a C.
Harry's Razors just came out with their sharpest blades ever. But unlike other razor companies, they're not charging you more. Harry's new sharper blades are still as low as $2 each. You heard me right, just $2. How do they do it? Harry's owns a German factory that's been honing razor blades for 100 years. They source their steel from Sweden and own the entire manufacturing process, from research and development to the factory floor. It allows them to keep the prices lower. How confident are they? A 100% quality guarantee. You'll see it at harrys.com. Blades are even delivered directly to you. No getting unmasked and standing in line. They're delivered straight to your door, with or without a subscription. And right now, Harry's has a great offer for my listeners. New customers get $5 off a Harry's trial set when you use the promo code PETRO, P-E-T-R-O, at harrys.com. That's a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and travel cover, all for just $3, plus free shipping. That's razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and travel cover, all for $3, shipped to you for free. Only at harrys.com, only with promo code PETRO.
Attention men, over half of you will suffer from erectile dysfunction. There is a solution, the Kansas City Men's Clinic. If you're having trouble getting or maintaining an erection, or both, and regardless of age, medical condition, or performance issue, they can help. Call the Kansas City Men's Clinic today and receive a confidential consultation and all testing for only $49. Call 816-608-8189. That's 816-608-8189. Or go to thekansascitymensclinic.com.
The baseball season is now in full swing, but you didn't even start your spring training yet. You can still get slimmer for the summer, since it only takes 40 days to lose a contractually guaranteed 20 to 40 plus pounds with NJ Diet. NJ Diet's program starts with bioenergetically personalized supplements based on your hair, saliva, and blood work. Then, NJ Diet uses DNA testing to create your ideal diet and workout regimen to help you keep it off. Don't want to do it alone? NJ Diet is with you every step of the way. You'll be fully monitored by their certified staff to make sure you're burning fat and not just losing water. You'll also get the doctor's personal email and phone number. NJ Diet is all natural, no shots, no hormones, and no surgery. NJ Diet is located in Overland Park or from the comfort of your own home with live online video consultations. Call today, 855-5NJ-DIET. That's 855-5NJ-DIET. Or go to njdiet.com and lose the weight for good. That's njdiet.com.
What do you get when you talk to a Dell Technologies advisor? You get someone who understands there's an art to listening.
Sure.
Who's able to hear more than what's being said and can provide tailored small business solutions that make you feel truly heard.
I understand. Let's get started.
For advice on everything from laptops to the cloud and solutions powered by Intel vPro platform, call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL.
Save big money on your next project with 11% off everything now at Menards. Landscape now and enjoy all summer with our great selection of landscape blocks. Whether it's a spacious patio, a decorative walkway, or flawless landscaping, you'll find the perfect blocks for your project. Save 11% on all concrete landscape and patio blocks. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through May 1st. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
I need attention!
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Two segments of Seth Keysor, because this is going to be hard for some of you to believe. We got on a bit of a tangent, and I want to get into some of the numbers of what he found whenever he was assessing Orlando Brown Jr. and the trade the Chiefs made to get him. I also need to tell you, by the way, very radio these last few minutes, that all of our draft coverage this week on Almost Entirely Sports has been brought to you by the Operating Engineers Local 101 Apprentice Program. Learn to operate all types of heavy equipment and specialized construction machinery. Call today at 816-640-2336. Seth, you've operated some specialized construction machinery in your day.
I didn't expect that to be thrown to me.
It's just a natural segue. We're just talking about Operating Engineers Local 101 Apprentice Program, which you can call today at 816-640-2336, because we appreciate having them here. And also, Seth, you've operated some heavy machinery. What was your favorite heavy machinery to work with?
My favorite was probably the giant forklifts that we used to move pipe from one location to another out in the oil patch.
Forklift sounds kind of fun. There we go.
Yeah,
Boom.
but the really big ones are fun.
There's a segue. It segues with the sponsor. It's got you in it. It's perfect. I mean, what else could we ask for? Okay, follow up. You know what we can ask for? The listener says to me subconsciously right now, you could finally talk about Orlando Brown, the film review. And I would say, good point, listener. That is what you could ask for. You can read this right now up in the Chief of the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com. You can subscribe for, how much is that again, Seth? People can subscribe to this for? It's an outrageous number.
If you utilize the deal that's currently up there via coupon, it's $12 a year.
It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just stupid. It's just bad business.
I also pretty soon here I'm going to be doing another giveaway. I've got another jar of the Super Bowl confetti.
All right,
I'd like to give away.
All right, fair enough. So you can go to mnchiefsfan.substack.com, bit.ly/SethHatesMoney, because he does. And you got the film review up. You can throw out some of your typical pre-offensive lineman kind of things to keep in mind. Loss percentage being more important than win percentage and all of that stuff. But take us into the Orlando Brown film review, what you were looking for as you set up, and then what you found.
Right, and so this one was for subscribers only because, I love you, dear subscribers. So the thing to look at with offensive linemen, traits are important, but when you're viewing pro players as opposed to college players, results are what's important, right? So it's very different from looking at college prospects where you're trying to extrapolate how they'll do against pros. Whereas with a pro, you can just say, how'd he do? And then you talk about the traits of how he did, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way. So I chart every snap for wins, losses, and neutral plays in pass blocking and run blocking. Pass blocking is obviously a lot more important, especially in the Chiefs system. And how often you lose is much more important than how often you win for an offensive lineman, because a dominant rep as a blocker doesn't guarantee the offense anything, because a lot of other things have to go right for a play to work. A loss, on the other hand, can completely torpedo a play. So even, if a player it's like, oh, well, he had 5 pass block losses that game. And depending on how many reps he had, that could be a disaster, because those are 5 plays where it could have just killed their chances. Not every loss is the same, but, at a certain point, I had to draw a line somewhere, right? I couldn't be not bad losses, right. Only sort of bad losses. Eventually, you get so many categories, it renders the whole analysis meaningless. So what I did is I charted 4 games of Brown. Indianapolis, the second time they played Pittsburgh, Dallas, and then their final game of the season against Cincinnati. The reason I went that route is the Indianapolis game was the first time he was the planned left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the games, I just kind of wanted to spread them out throughout the season a little bit. And also, I wanted to look at him against a variety of edge rushers with different skill sets. So the Colts have Autry and Houston. And then the Steelers, he didn't face Watt more than once or twice. He was mostly against Dupree, but a really different skill set, different way of winning. With the Cowboys, he went up against Lawrence and Aldon Smith, a pair of really good pass rushers who win in very different ways. And then against Cincinnati, he went up against who's probably the best of the lot that I watched, honestly, Carl Lawson, who, excellent player, but he wins in a very unique way as well. He's got a great explosion and a ton of power. So I charted those 4 games, trying to figure out what he looks like, and then also trying to look at those traits as well to see how he'd fit in with the Chiefs. And so that's the methodology. And now that I've talked for a while, where do you want me to start?
I want you to start with what he has plus traits at, where you say, all right, well, this is where this dude makes his money.
Sure. So the first place that he makes his money is in pass protection, which is nice to hear. Mm-hmm. And it's in length, long arms, which, I mean, people got tired of hearing about long arms.
Yep.
It's one thing to just talk about them with a prospect. Oh, his arms are short, his arms are long. But to see it play out on film. He's got tremendous upper body strength and tremendous length, a great punch in pass pro, and it comes through time after time after time in how he plays. He plays the tackle position very differently than Eric Fisher. Without getting too deep in the weeds, Eric Fisher took a lot of what's called vertical sets, where you're not necessarily backpedaling, but you're kind of letting the rusher come to you as you get set, and you play a little more catch technique, and you're not necessarily the aggressor, right? You're trying to prevent him from beating you to the edge. Whereas what Brown does, he takes a lot more aggressive sets, whether you want to call them a 45 degree or a horizontal set, where he's initiating contact. And that's risky for a few reasons, but because he has such tremendous length, and you see a lot of the video clips that I use show this, he initiates contact that disrupts the rusher from their initial planned path and forces them to alter their plan to where basically you can't really beat him with power moves because he takes such aggressive sets unless you happen to beat him there and get inside his pads. And so where he makes his money is that in dominating initially, making that initial contact, and forcing players to play one-dimensionally because they can't beat him due to his, I mean, he's huge.
Yeah.
He's a huge player, and he plays with better leverage than you'd think for a guy who's 6'8".
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Fisher thing, because honestly, whenever you asked what I wanted to hear from, it was between what I said and how is he different than Eric Fisher, because I actually think, and you can get more detail in the piece on the Chief of the North newsletter right now, I think that might have been my favorite little snippet throughout the course, because it shows up a couple times in just like the differences that you pointed out there. That is extremely interesting to me. Maybe it was my favorite part of this film review because it's pretty tangible. Like, once you point it out, I don't know if I would see all of this, watching film on my own or whatever. When you point out, hey, look at Eric, this is how Eric Fisher would do it. Look at how Orlando Brown is the aggressor in this sense. Or with the ways that changes how you're going to handle a super deep drop, the vertical that you mentioned.
Yes.
So let's dig in now on that. Where do you think where does he find himself in trouble, I guess, and how do you see that eventually potentially running in to the Chiefs offense and what they asked Eric Fisher to do versus what maybe Orlando Brown has been asked to do up until this point?
Absolutely. So his foot speed hasn't been a huge issue for him to this point in his career because of the way he's been asked to win. Excuse me.
You're getting choked up just thinking about it.
Good
I
Lord.
understand that. It's a very emotional time.
So his foot speed isn't the same. He's not the athlete Eric Fisher is. And so when you look at his lateral movement and change of direction, you're always going to be asking yourself, is this a guy, it's similar to what I talked about with like Stone Forsythe, except, we know a lot more about Brown.
Right.
Is this a guy who can beat fast edge rushers to the top of the arc? Or are they just going to run around him? Right? That's where he could get himself into trouble. And in terms of, and before anyone despairs on that, there's a good answer for that, why he doesn't. There's also, when you play aggressive and you are delivering the punch, there's always the risk that a guy either dips underneath that punch. One of Frank Clark's favorite moves last year, which was a down year for him, but some of the snaps that he won was where he would dip that inside shoulder and go right around the punch and then bend around the edge because the tackle, he was able to get inside the pads of the tackle by bending underneath the punch. So a player like Brown, you could see him losing that way, right? Where you when you're the aggressor, you always run the risk of your momentum being wrong and you ending up off bounds. One reason, so I'll kind of do it this way. One reason I'm not terribly concerned about that with him is because even though he doesn't have great athleticism in terms of his lateral movement, his bounce is pretty good. And so and when you combine that with his strength, even when he was taken a little bit off balance, he generally seemed to recover decently in a way that a lot of players can't. There are some players that once they get stuck off bounce, they tend to, that's it for them. There's a great snap that he has against Carl Lawson, who's one of the better bull rushers in the league, where Lawson's able to actually get inside his punch and to where he has the leverage and starts pushing him back. And Brown ends up hopping on one foot for a couple of steps there.
Yeah.
But he's still able to reset and plant that right foot, change his body momentum in order to start utilizing Lawson's momentum against him a little and redirect him inside. It's maybe his most impressive snap.
It's crazy.
Everything.
It's crazy. His footwork looked like a Veggie Tale for a minute in there.
He does, yeah. He's hopping along. And so you see that kind of bounce is really hard to obtain when you've got a guy as strong as Carl Lawson shoving you. And if we were to compare it to Fisher, who I have all the respect in the world for, he did struggle with power rushers. And when he was taken off balance, despite being a superior athlete to Brown, he struggled more to regroup because he just did not have a ton of lower body power. And so he didn't have a ton of upper body power. That wasn't his game, right? And so when he started to get overpowered, it was tough for him to regroup. So that's one reason where Brown could struggle, but he's generally able to get it done even against high quality competition. The other place, and this is the one that's going to be interesting for him, there's not a ton of reps of him doing pure vertical sets with a planned, 10 yards deep drop back. What he usually did is he would try to win vertically or horizontally, shove the guy off their mark, and then the pass rushers, because they couldn't go through him or inside him because he's too strong, then they would try to bend around the arc. And there was one play where Bud Dupree just ran right around him. And that's going to be the thing. Can he get depth on those drops quickly enough without getting off balance, without having to lunge? Now, he, generally speaking, there wasn't a single game I watched where he wasn't the one who won the matchup. And that's impressive because these were good players. Yeah. But Dupree gave him problems on a few snaps because he's got a little better first step. At the same time, he did have to take some more vertical reps that game where he showed really well, and this is one of the ones that's demonstrated too, where rather than pushing out to meet Dupree, you see him actually kick sliding vertically, and his first couple steps are quicker than you would think, given his size. And then after that, his feet might look a little heavy, but because he's got such long legs, he covers ground quickly, and he beats Dupree to the top of the arc easily, and then just harmlessly bats him away, to where Dupree doesn't even try to beat him, really. He's just like, crap, well, he's here. So let's just hang out. And so that'll be the question that's something of an unknown for the Chiefs, is that he's done it in limited bursts. Can he do it consistently, knowing that Patrick Mahomes is a very different quarterback from Lamar Jackson? Now, at the same time, can Patrick Mahomes adjust his game from when Fisher got beat, it was often inside or guys going right through him. So Mahomes got used to drifting back and drifting back and drifting back because that was actually the safer play with Fisher. Right. With Brown, he's going to be more step up into the pocket, and Brown, 9 times out of 10, is going to direct even a good rush around the pocket. He's just hard to beat around the edge. Even when guys get a good dip and rip on him, he's so strong and he's just so wide. It's like running around a building. And so it's going to be an interesting adjustment, and it wouldn't surprise me. Now, Mahomes is great, but it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a few ugly sacks, especially early, where Mahomes tries to do his thing and Brown does not have the foot speed to help a quarterback who's, 10 to 12 yards back.
Yeah. I think that's going to be super interesting. And also, the amount of time we've talked about, like, the depth of pockets and stuff, it's another thing to maybe have Tooney have a bigger impact on again, and to put Blythe back under the microscope and whatever happens at right guard. If Mahomes can step up, I'm hopeful that he will.
Yes.
But oftentimes when there's been offensive line failures last couple of years, that hasn't necessarily been a great option. Okay, I'm going to ask you for this one in about a 30-second little snippet here, but you went into some of the issues in terms of the running game. Or really it's more him in space. Whenever they are running the ball to the left, what are you expecting?
So it's interesting, and this is, again, in comparison to Eric Fisher, who is a tremendous athlete. Brown's not in his league athletically in terms of getting out in space. Now, here's where it's interesting. He can get out in space. They used him as a pulling player. They used him as a guy who participated in combo blocks where you start off with a double team and then you climb to the second level, okay? So it's not that he can't do it. It's just if he has to change direction in space, most of the time, agile defenders in space are going to be able to get around him. Now, the good news is he knows how to use his body to at least just be an obstacle, right? He's at least a tree that's standing in the way. And a good runner, a smart runner, like a guy like Edwards-Helaire or whatever, I mean, that's someone that should be able to at least utilize that to get some decent gains. But it would be a mistake, I think, to utilize him the exact same way Fisher was used, because they loved getting Fisher out in space because he thrived there. That was one of his better traits. It's not so with Brown. On the flip side, Brown is able to generate more push. There was one snap that I actually didn't even use because it was in a different game, where he grabs Myles Garrett by the shoulders and just moves him to the side. And Myles Garrett got his against Brown too. Garrett's a freak. He might be the best edge rusher in the league. But being able to move someone like that was never Fisher's game. And so he has the ability, especially participating in double teams, to help shove defenders out of running lanes and then climb to the second level and maybe guarantee. It's almost like raising the floor of run plays.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You guarantee a few extra yards.
Yeah.
Whereas, maybe the ceiling maybe is lower because he can't get as far out in space. I have no idea how that works. Because really, once you climb to the second level and get in the way of a linebacker, that's all you're really asked to do.
Right.
So it'll be an interesting thing there. I think if he plays the exact same way he played in Baltimore last year, which in very different systems would be surprising, but we'll see. He would be an upgrade over Fisher in pass protection. Not a huge one, but I think an upgrade, especially against high-level competition, because I didn't see as much of a shift in his play as we did with Fisher. Fisher tended to dominate lower-level competition, do pretty well against decent competition, and then he would struggle against the top-end guys, especially guys who won with strength. Whereas with Brown, I think you're going to see better there. And then in the run game, I think you could see just different, if that makes sense, but about the similar play level. I realize now you told me to make that 30 seconds.
Well, here's what it's going to lead us to. It's that if people want to hear more and want to see your final takeaway on Orlando Brown Jr. in the trade forum, they can go to mnchiefsfan.substack.com. They can go to bit.ly/SethHatesMoney. They can read your work there. They can read you on The Athletic. They can hear you on the Time Czars podcast. We'll have another episode of that tomorrow with you, me, and Nate Taylor. And as a very special treat, you're here for the end of the show now. So, at the end of every show, I say goodbye to my mom. Whenever Mick is here, Mick Schaefer's here for the end of the show, he says bye to my mom also, and I don't know. Mick really puts a stink on it that I don't appreciate, but I'll tell you this. We have an NFL draft special tomorrow night with myself at 7 to 10. It's the AES crew, but we're going all draft for 3 hours. That's tomorrow night here on Sports Radio 810, our NFL draft special show, previewing all that, 7 to 10. We talk basically no draft here with Seth, but we'll talk more draft tomorrow night, and we'll talk draft with Seth after it happens. And Seth, I'll give you the final word. You can say bye, Mom, and it can be ambiguous. You can say specifically bye to any particular mom. It's up to you, but you get the final words of today's show.
Mrs. Brisco, I blame you for this. But I understand you probably did the best you could. So you have a wonderful evening.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.